All right. Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's doing well this afternoon. We've already got a handful of thunderstorms trying to billow up out there across the Texas Panhandle. So we'll be focused on some of those storm clusters, talking about how long they may persist. It's going to be very similar to yesterday. Storms are going to be kind of isolated, not everyone going to benefit from them, but where they do set up, they're going to produce some erratic wind gusts up to 60 to 70 miles per hour, and we are going to see some very heavy rainfall. This is a live look outside at the camera there in Clarendon. You can see they've got some rain falling just to the north and west of town. Right there, it looks like, again, there's Highway 287. As you go further northwest between there and Claude is where that thunderstorm is located. Let's take a look out in Bushland. It's a little bit sunnier out there. We do have a few of those cumulus clouds getting some broader bases to them. So we'll probably continue to see some of these thunderstorms try and billow up here over the course of the next couple hours, and we'll see them put down some outflow boundaries, and we'll likely see more storms develop on those OFBs as we get into the late evening hours. So here's a broad view of the whole viewing area. You can see we've got that small cluster there moving into the northwest side of Donley County. Quite a few cloud to ground lightning strikes there. Got another cluster up here. Let's take a closer look at this stuff. Slap out here in southeast Beaver County actually did have a registered wind gust of 62 miles per hour. So these microburst style thunderstorms are certainly producing some very heavy rainfall and some sporadic wind gusts. Looks like Booker, you guys are getting some much needed rain up there. You guys have only had like 7 inches of rain the whole year. There's not very many places below average for precipitation here in the Panhandle this year, but you guys are one of them. So good to see that you are all seeing some rainfall. This is again going to be clustered thunderstorms. Not everyone's going to benefit, but glad you guys are seeing some rain up there. Here's the cluster in Donley County, or at least moving into Donley County. You can see it's in between Claude and Clarendon, some heavy rain there on the highway. That's going to be moving up through Groom and then back up towards LaForge there in Gray County. These storms should stay mainly below severe limits, but don't be shocked to get some of those erratic wind gusts that will be strong to severe. Again, these are going to be pulse type thunderstorms, kind of borderline microbursts whenever they start to fall apart, like we've seen recently. Temperatures outside 80s and 90s, so we've certainly got the moisture in place. Our dew point's 61 here in Amarillo, 66-degree dew point there in Clarendon, and you can see some really rich moist air actually out here in eastern Kansas and parts of central and eastern Oklahoma. We are expecting a stationary front to stall out tomorrow. That actually will probably bring in some higher dews, at least in the eastern and northeast panhandles. There's a few high-res models that suggest some of our dew points could even climb to about 70 in the surface there around Canadian and Perryton. If that were to happen, we would see some really prolific rain rates out of storms tomorrow, which I think is going to be a bigger story for us. So here's our outlook for today. It is a general thunderstorm risk like the last few days have been, but I still think that those wind gusts around 70 miles an hour could be possible wherever these storms do collapse. Tomorrow, we'll actually have some more wind shear, and so that will probably increase our coverage of storms and probably their intensity and duration should we get any kind of severe storm to develop. It may persist for an hour or two rather than, just kind of collapsing and producing that 5 to 15 minutes worth of strong winds. We may see it kind of persist a little longer than that. But the wind threat will still be the primary concern on Thursday. But we are going to have a pretty stout shortwave trough move overhead. That's going to be coupled with that stalled boundary. And right now, models have struggled with storm initiation in the afternoons and the coverage of storms. Models do not, they have not dialed it back for Thursday. They are pretty aggressive with our storm coverage. And being how widespread storms have already been recently this week, I would say that the trend is it probably will be a fairly active night tomorrow night here across the Panhandles and eastern New Mexico. So here's your chance for rain tomorrow night. This is going to be your best shot of rain, I think, through the next 7 to 10 days. Will be on Thursday. So if you miss the rain tomorrow evening, it's possible that you do maybe go rain free over the course of the next 7 days heading into the end of July. But Amarillo, we've got about a 50% chance for rain tonight, or rather tomorrow night for now. These chances are still subject to change a little bit, but we think that northern half of the Panhandles is going to be best favored for the best coverage for thunderstorms. Doesn't mean you'll see the strongest storms, just means that you'll see probably the most coverage for storm activity. Let's go ahead and run you through the computer model. So there's those storms that we're already seeing develop out there in the east and northeast panhandle. That stuff should persist through the next several hours. We maybe get a few more storms to develop out in New Mexico. Those are going to try and push into the panhandles, and then we'll have that cold front run out of steam at some point on Thursday. This is 6 o'clock tomorrow night. You can see we've got this thing cutting the panhandle in half. Southeast still very warm, lots of 90s down there, but 70s and 80s at 6 o'clock in the evening on the other side of the boundary. So there's going to be a kind of a tale of two seasons, just depending on which side of that boundary you end up on. That northwest half of the viewing area going to be more spring-like, whereas the southeast will feel more summer-like with those temperatures in the 90s. And then you can see there's that bigger complex that may inevitably unfold late in the evening heading into Friday morning. Again, the wind threat would be our biggest concern, but we're also probably going to see a swath of 1 to 3 inches of rain from it too. So that will be a lot of rainfall for those that do get to benefit from it. Probably not uniform in coverage, but there will be a large chunk of the area that I do think sees some rain through the course of Thursday evening. As we head into Friday, that trough gets set up further southeast, so storm activity should be focused more along it rather than here in the panhandles. We could get a stray shower or two coming off the mountains of the Sangre de Cristos, but overall, Friday looks to be a much quieter day in terms of our storm coverage. So here's the overall upper level weather pattern. So this is Saturday. You can see that ridge of high pressure continue to be stuck there in the southeast. It is expected to retrograde and propagate up into the northern plains as we jump out of July and into August. It's going to probably at least pass by close to the panhandles through the weekend and early next week. So I think that'll be our stretch of hotter weather whenever it gets closer to home. We do have that tropical wave that's going to move onshore on Friday there on the Texas Gulf Coast. By Saturday, should be kind of towards the Big Bend region. But here's the overall situation. We've got this ridge. While it is expected to shift to the north, models keep us very dry, which I think is just a little strange because we do have all of this low-level moisture continuing to be pumped in to South Texas. That gets to be pushed around this ridge of high pressure. And that's really been the overall story for the last several weeks is even though we're not in this crazy active pattern, we've had enough rain recently, or at least in the first half of our monsoon season, that we've got high humidity, we've got good soil moisture. And sometimes that's enough to kickstart thunderstorms, even though models are suggesting we stay dry. They just don't really pick up on how moist the atmosphere is, and they don't pick up on just how much water we have in the soil to help, again, keep that humidity a little bit higher here in the panhandles. I mean, some of us have seen 15 to 20 inches of rain already this year. Annual average for Amarillo is 20 inches of rain, and we're already at about 15. So we're way ahead of schedule. And I think Hereford's close to 20 inches of rain, and they only average about 18 a year. So they've already seen their annual rainfall average. That just means that it's very wet out there. We've got a lot of green grass. So with this overall pattern, even though our forecast models are suggesting we stay dry this weekend and into next week, I'm really hesitant to say that that's going to be the case. I still think that we may get some of those pulse type thunderstorms to try and get going. The coverage may not be that great, but we will probably still see some at least spotty thunderstorm chances through the weekend and into early next week. So here's the newest update from the Climate Prediction Center. This has actually changed since yesterday and the day before. They were showing us to be relatively dry, and we may actually continue to see again that moisture transport underneath the Bermuda High, and that's going to pump all of that low-level moisture here into the southern plains. We may actually fall under some northwest flow by the time we get into the end of the month and into early August. If that were to verify, that northwest flow event, those are usually the ones where we have more severe weather potential, just because all that cold air over the mountains gets blown out into the plains, and you've got cold air aloft, and then you've got warm, moist air underneath it. That's a pretty unstable environment. So maybe something to watch. We might get maybe a flare-up of some marginal severe kind of style weather as we move into that early week or two of August. I would not take above average chances for rain off the table, even though models are currently forecasting us to stay dry. We've got a lot of moisture riding underneath the Bermuda High, and it's, again, just kind of coupled with us being wet to start the year. That can influence and at least prolong that chance for consistent moisture. So that's kind of what we expect, or at least that's what I'm thinking right now. I know it doesn't really reflect it in our 7-day forecast. It's just because there's really no model suggesting that we see rain. But I would be hesitant to say that that's not going to change as we move into next week and we start seeing some of the high resolution models get into range of being able to pick that day-to-day stuff. I think that those pops may start coming back into the forecast. For now, we're going to leave it out just because there's no guidance that's suggesting that. But given the pattern that still will be there Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I still think that we may have a storm or two that tries to develop on a day-to-day basis. It may not be for everyone, but there's going to still be some activity out there. The big story, or at least for everyone, will be the heat. We're going to be in the 90s, and with all the moisture we have had, the heat index values actually could play a role in impacting kind of your day-to-day activities. We may see some heat indices get close to 100 degrees, maybe even into the lower 100s, not quite to heat advisory criteria, but enough where you may want to start pacing yourself outside, getting those chores done in the mornings rather than into the afternoons. Again, we've been really wet to start the summer, and we've just got this positive feedback loop keeping us on a semi-active pattern, even though it's technically quiet compared to what May and June were. July, even though we have kind of warmed up a bit, we haven't necessarily dried out completely. Even though we are losing more moisture due to evaporation, but we are still seeing some storms pulse up. Today being a prime example of that, and yesterday being a prime example of that. Models kept us relatively dry all day, and then even last night we got storms to billow up, and we had some scattered storms in the central panhandle, even though models did not forecast that to happen. So that's kind of the situation we're in. Summertime convection really just comes down to a few parameters. Do we have the moisture in place at the surface? Are we going to get to that convective temperature? And more often than not, whenever we see that moisture early in the season, it can influence how the second half of the summer goes. So I don't think we're going to get flash drought yet. Sometimes we can get those dry spells, but given how wet we've been, I would be hesitant to say that that's going to happen this year. We may get, a week or two where it's not as active, but I still think we'll probably still see some storms on a day-to-day basis for the most part. That's all I've got for you guys. Again, if we have severe weather, we may jump back live later this evening, but we're going to end it here for you. Again, if you jumped on late, this is going to post to YouTube. This is going to post to Facebook and Twitter, and so you'll get to watch it from beginning to end if you missed anything or if you have a question that we maybe haven't answered.